Welcome to today's lecture. Today we'll be discussing conflict resolution. Today we'll be discussing conflict resolution. We'll be looking at conflict management. Today we'll be discussing conflict resolution. So our objective for this lecture today is identify aspects of your professional law that predispose to conflict with next administration of physicians. Identify aspects of your professional law that predispose to conflict with the next administrator of physicians. Other objectives is analyze an ongoing conflict in your organization and identify the manifested conflict, the third conflict, the pre-conditioning or the antecedent conditions, and the internal and external influence of the conflict. That's the second objective. The third objective is differentiate the three common methods of conflict resolution. Differentiate, differentiate the three common Represent the three common methods of conflict resolution. The last one is elaborate different ways of conflict management and identify the most preferable of conflict management. So these are the objectives for this lecture. These are our objectives for this lecture. So conflict resolution. In healthcare organization, the potential for conflict is heightened because of life and death issues. So because of the situation which is in health setting, the aspects of conflict are also there. Independent and interdependent within a system of containing considerable laws, ambiguous and conflict lines. So it's because all the individuals are from different departments and also they're under different heads, all that can bring about conflict. For example, the people from the physiotherapy, they have their own HOD. The people from the nursing department, not do they have the matron, also they have the in charge from the department. So also the dental department also they have the someone who's in charge of them. All those can bring about conflict. There's need for for how health workers to be highly skilled both in technical areas and in human relations. So human health workers also need to know about how to work and also how to deal with human relations, how they coordinate at the workplace as individuals and also as human resources. The other organization may demand similar qualities from individuals, but sort of to the same extent they are required for professional in both healthcare settings. So regardless any uh, of any need, even in a health profession, we need to act professional. But the uh, apart from the fact that we are all interdependent and we all work as a team, we need to act professional in the healthcare facility. Imagine uh, nurses are fighting physicians, that's an profession. Imagine nurses are fighting amongst themselves, it's a profession. So we need to act and be a professional, even at workplace. So that's why it's important as an in charge or as a manager running a department to understand the whole aspect of conflict resolution, to understand the aspect of conflict resolution. So what is conflict? Conflict is an expression of struggle between and at least two interdependent parties. It's an expression of struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce reward, and interference from the other party in achieving other goals. It's the expression it's the expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce reward, and interference from the other party in achieving the goals. For example, to discover that people have different opinions, they are going to undergo conflict. Any misunderstanding can bring about conflict. All those are some of the contributing factors to conflict. Misunderstanding, incompatible goals, perceived uh, incompatible goals can bring about conflict. Conflict produces a feeling of tension. So when people are in conflict, there will be tension amongst themselves. The people wish to do something to give their discomfort that result from tension. So when there's conflict or misunderstanding between two people, there is usually tension among them. Tension among them. Characteristics of a conflict. Characteristics of a conflict. What are some of the characteristics of a conflict? So there are 5 characteristics of conflict created and identified as for example, when you read other books, there discover there are more than 5, but you're going to look at the 5 characteristics of conflict. Number 1, at least 2 parties are involved in the same form of interaction. So if you discover that 2 parties are involved in the same form of interaction, the difference in goal value either exists or perceived to exist by the 2 parties involved. So you discover there's usually a difference in the goals or values. Values what they believe in. If they have any misunderstanding on what they believe in, conflict can arise. The interaction involves behavior that will defect, defeat, reduce, or suppress the opponent or gain victory. So if the behavior between the two, one is trying to win to suppress the other component, there will be conflict because the other one wants to win. So there will be conflict. The parties come together with opposing action. So if the 2 individuals are coming together with opposing action or counter reactions, there will be conflict. So if the other one is trying to oppose the component, the colleague, there will be conflict or there will be tension among them because the other one wants to win. So there will be conflict. Each party attempts to create an imbalance or favor power position. So if there's one individual who is trying to attempt to create an imbalance or favored power position, there will be conflict. Types of conflict. Types of conflict. So we're going to look at types of conflict now. Now we have interpersonal conflict. This is a conflict. Interpersonal conflict. This is a conflict between 2 individuals. This is a conflict between 2 individuals. The conflict between 2 individuals. We have also intergroup conflicts. Intergroup conflicts are between 2 groups, 2 large groups. Intergroup conflicts between 2 small groups, 2 large groups. So if there's a conflict between 2 different groups, it's what we call intergroup conflict. For example, ZRIN3 and ZRR4, they have different opinions. There will be conflict among the 2 groups. So that's what we call intergroup conflict. The other group is the other one, personal group conflict. Personal group conflict. Individuals and a small group. Together there's personal group. So there's conflict between one individual and the group. So for example, the entire class. Musonda has conflict with the entire class. That's what we call personal group conflict. Individual and a group or small group of people. So one individual is having conflict with a large group. Then we have also the intrapersonal conflict. So these are conflicts within an individual. Is trying to is having difficulties to is having difficulties to make a decision. So there's conflict between him. He's opposing himself, also trying to gain at the same time. So it's intrapersonal conflict. It's a conflict within an individual, within a person. Himself is having a conflict as an individual. So those are types of conflict. Basically 4 types of conflict. Conflict resolution theory. Conflict resolution theory. Conflict resolution theory. So we're going to look at some of the theories and how you can resolve conflict. So according to Philip 1975, this guy came up with a theory on how to resolve conflict. So he contributed to the body of science. What they see in Africa, people are busy specialized in witchcraft. This guy, Pele, discovered conflict resolution theory. So he came up with about six um, conflict resolution process. So propose a model of conflict resolution which provides a framework that helps explain how and why conflict occurs, and ultimately how one can minimize conflict or resolve it with the at least amount of negative aftermath. So he looks at how one can resolve conflict following those steps. So the first step we said is the sedent condition, which is also called the pre-existing. The second one is the perceived conflict. The third one is the thought conflict. The fourth is uh, manifest behavior. The fifth is conflict resolution or suppression. The last one is resolution aftermath. So we're going to look at all of them in detail. Perceived conflict. Perceived conflict is two or more individuals logically and objectively recognize that their aims are incompatible. So it's two individuals recognize. We're looking at conflict resolution process. So it's two individuals or two groups of people recognizes that logically and objectively that their aims are incompatible. That is perceived conflict after they have accepted that their opinion or goals are not in line. Felt conflict, individuals experiencing feelings of threat. Individuals experiencing feelings of threat. Individuals experiencing the feelings of threat, hostility, fear, or mistrust. So felt conflict when individuals start experiencing the threat, hostility, or fear, or mistrust. That's what we call felt conflict after they start feeling that threat, hostility, fear, and also mistrust. It's called felt conflict because they are feeling that conflict among themselves. We have also the manifest behavior, an overt action or behavior that takes place, operations, competitions, debates, and problem solving. So there are certain conflicts, certain situations or behavior that bring about uh, conflict, suppresses someone, brings about conflict or misunderstanding, like debate. You're debating about something. At the end of the day, it can bring about conflict among themselves. Also, competition. If there's competition, it sometimes brings about conflict among individuals. We have also conflict resolution or separation. The conflict is resolved or suppressed by either party in agreement, or else by the defect of one party. So conflict suppression, the parties resolved or suppressed by either party agreement or else by defect of one party. So the conflict is resolved or suppressed by all parties in agreement. So the parties are going to resolve the conflict amongst themselves or by the defeat of one part. So the conflict can also be resolved or suppressed by one party being defeated. Then we have resolution aftermath. Resolution aftermath, individuals experience or live with the consequence of uh, resolution. So after reaching an agreement, individuals may experience or live the consequences of the resolution. So some people continue living with it. So we are going to look at now, we're going to look at the conflict resolution theory, starting from the first one, the pre-existing. Certain conditions exist can lead to conflict, although they do not always do so. Conflict may develop from a number of ascending sources. So there are certain conditions or circumstances which bring about conflict. For example, as we mentioned from the first, we said the incompatible goals. If goals are not in the same line, so it can lead to conflict. If goals are not in the same line, it can lead to conflict. It's called incompatible goals. Distribution of scarce resource. So if resources are not well distributed among a few individuals, uh, for example, what can I say? For example, you you receive a grant of facility 10,000 and you are 10 of you and one gave 5,000 and the less shares the remaining to them. There will be conflict among them because resources are not well distributed to bring about uh, conflict among themselves. When individuals have high expectation towards the world, so usually when individuals work hard at the workplace, some expect to be promoted or being given an award. If that is not done to them, they are going to conflict is going to arise among them. For example, individuals really working, one nurse is very hard working in the department and they expect to be the intern. Then they just choose someone who's not hardworking or who misses work to be the intern. There'll be conflict among them. One won't be happy. Regulation when an individual needs for autonomy conflicts with another need for regulation mechanism. So if they when it comes to giving power, giving to another person, there will be mistrust. Also, recognize different attitudes and behavior. So certain individuals' behavior or attitude and behavior, it can bring about conflict. For example, just walking into a room, we're talking, someone starts insulting me, it can arise to conflict. Conflict also occurs even in a relationship because someone not picking up your call, other people get becomes offended and conflict is going to arise because of misunderstanding or mistrust or bad attitude can contribute to other uh, things which can lead to conflict is interest in outcome. The interest of outcome, so if the interest of outcome is not telling or others are benefiting more compared to others, there will be conflict. Value. The values, other people don't follow values, even that can lead to conflict. Laws, when two individuals have equal responsibility, but as the bond are clear. So when two individuals have equal opportunity, but they don't have equal responsibility. For example, you have this, all of you have made it in life. The first exam and you're employed. Then one is getting more salary than the other, but you have all same qualification. There will be uh, that's what is saying the equal opportunities are not equally shared. So there should be equal opportunities among people. Thus, when outcome of one individual group becomes input for another individual group. So when the output of one individual or group become input for another, so if they misappropriate funds or what somebody has put in is not paid according to what he has put in, they have paid another person from what he has put in. That can also bring about conflict. So conflict process, it has the first one ascending condition, which we also call pre-existing. We have also the perceived conflict of so pre-existing is on top. From there we have the ascendant condition or pre-existing is on top. Then you have perceived conflict, throat conflict, manifest behavior, conflict resolution, then conflict aftermath. So they are all following in line. So after those the first stage is going to go into all those stages until it is the last stage. Manifest behavior. Manifest behavior refers to behavior and action on the individual in response to conflict. Behavior refers manifest behavior refers to behavior and action of individual in response to conflict. These are the signs of conflict that are observed by standby leaders. Primarily, there are two kinds of behavior. Conf conflictive behavior, negative, and also problem-solving behavior. They are positive. So differs to individual and action of differs to behavior and actions of individual in response to conflict. So they are different. The other people, if there is a conflict, other people want to solve the problem. Other people are going to be continue creating uh, uh, conflict. So it's called a negative behavior. And others who want to resolve the problem to come up to an amicable solution. So they'll be, it's called positive behavior. So under mindset behavior, we see this conflictive behavior is characterized by conscious attempt of one person to compete. If one person is trying to compete, dominate over or win over a second behavior, there will be conflict. Then problem solving on the other hand, unconscious attempt to find mutual acceptance alternatives, to find approachable approaches to problems that have positive outcomes for both parties. Conflict resolution or suppression. In conflict situations, individuals can either suppress conflict or engage in activities which may lead to its resolution. Behavior directed towards the solution of conflict can be characterized by three communicative strategies: win lose, lose lose, win win. So the conflict resolution, there are three aspects. So win lose, one is going to win, the other one is going to lose, the other one is lose lose. Then the last one is winning. They can all win. So in conflict situations, these are either suppressed or engage in activities that will lead to resolution, which will lead to solving of problems. So behavior directed towards the resolution of conflict can be characterized by three: win lose, so one can win, other one loses; win lose lose, or win win. Win lose strategy. The win lose strategy of conflict resolution is quite common, and most of us have used it at one time or another. It is not the optimum way of resolving conflict because one of the participants loses. This strategy is characterized by the attempt of one individual to control or dominate another one as to obtain his or her goal, even at the expense of others. So this is other strategies which can lead to solving conflict. The other individual who want to win over the other one. So win-lose conflict is quite common. The other one wins, the other one loses. So that the problem can be solved. This strategy is characterized by the attempt of one individual to control or and dominate another as to obtain his or her goal on the expense of the others. We have lose-lose strategy. This approach to conflict, absolute one which will this approach to conflict is absolute one will would like to avoid when possible. It's obvious. This lose-lose approach is obvious one we would all like to avoid when possible. So this lose-lose, we're all trying, when you're trying to resolve conflict, make sure that no one wins. We are all trying to avoid the lose-lose approach as possible. So if there's a misunderstanding at workplace, you need to make sure that you avoid the lose-lose strategy because all the individuals are going to lose. So try to come up with an amicable solution. Most people do not intentionally select a lose-lose strategy, but they end up with the outcome when other strategies such as win-lose fail. In lose-lose conflict, both parties try to win over the other, but both end up losing to each other. Either person's goals are achieved or the relationship is weakened. Attempts by individuals to dominate over each other out of mutual destructive communication between the participants and negative outcomes. So there are certain situations where people just failed to resolve a conflict. They all end up losing, and there'll be misunderstanding and communication imbalance. So if you have a misunderstanding, try as much as possible to avoid lose-lose strategy. Try at least to have a win-lose strategy. So this is just a case study. You're going to go through it yourself so that it can help you to solve the conflict. So win-win strategy. Individuals who employ win-win strategy approach uh, is, in ways that are significant differ from one strategy used by individuals who take win-lose or lose-lose approach towards conflict. The win-win strategy is an approach that allows both individuals to feel that they are complete or part of their goal. This strategy tries to satisfy mutual needs, to solve problems creatively, and also to develop relationships. So if there's an misunderstanding, you can also apply the win-win strategy where all individuals uh, satisfy their needs and also problems are solved and the relationship continues. Win-win strategy, there's no attempt by one party to win over or control another party. This approach. Finding win-win conflict solutions means suppressing but not sacrificing our own needs in order to listen to the needs of others. Whether it whether it is a conflict over a policy or procedures or conflict for control. Esteem, win-win strategy means both parties communicate in ways that allow each of them to satisfy at least some of their needs. Win-win solution strategy strengthens relationships, make they make individuals feel better about what they're related to others over time. Over time, strengthening of relationship have the advantage of helping individuals in future conflicts. So, win-win strategy it also helps individuals feel better because all the individuals are benefited. There's no one was lost. They all feel happy. Then resolution aftermath. The final aspect of conflict, according to FIRA conflict model, is resolution aftermath. During this phase, participants experience feelings directly related to the outcome of the resolution process because they have come up with a solution, whether lose-lose, win-lose, and also win-win. They will start experiencing that after math. If conflict is resolved in a positive fashion, if conflict is resolved in a positive fashion, the participants will have good feelings about themselves. The participants will have good feelings about themselves, about each other and the situation. This is the case of the winning strategy. On the other hand, conflict is resolved in an unproductive style. Participants will be negative feeling about themselves, each other, and the feeling. So if people are in conflict, if they all win, they'll feel good about themselves and also others. But if the other one, if they all lose or the other one lose strategy or the other one wins over the other one, they are going to have a negative feeling about themselves and also the relationship won't continue amongst the individuals. In a win-lose or lose-lose situation, participants may feel less cooperative, more distrustful, and very prone to further conflict. This obviously the preferred goal for conflict resolution is to arrive at a solution that results in positive feelings, productive interaction, cooperation, relation. So when you're trying to resolve a conflict, make sure that you arrive to a solution which has positive feelings, productive interaction, and cooperative relations. Conflict management or styles of approaching conflict. There's one, avoidance. Researchers have found that individuals approach interpersonal conflict using 5 styles. There's avoidance, there's competition, there's accommodating, there's compromising, and there's collaborating. So conflict management or styles of approaching conflict. Other people they will apply the avoidance. They'll just avoid the situation to avoid conflict. The other one is competition. Others will bring about competition. Others is accommodation. They're going to accommodate the other one. The other one is um the other one is compromise. Compromise the situation. The other one is collaboration. The 5 themes of prescribed conflict was developed by Thomas. So avoidance. The style is characterized of individuals who are passive and may not and do not want to recognize conflict. These persons generally prefer to ignore situations rather than confronting them directly. So if there's a conflict, certain individuals will just prefer to avoid that conflict. In conflict producing circumstances, these individuals are not assertive about pursuing their own interests. No, they are cooperating in assisting others to pursue their concerns. In healthcare, the problem is that exists will seldom be alleviated. Resolved of avoidance is deployed in conflict situations. So it is a conflict. Also, avoidance is another strategy. Just ignore as if the problem is not there. You are ignoring the problem. It's one way of managing conflict. Avoidance is not a constructive style of um, conflicting conflict. So it's not very constructive style. Both health professions who are continuously required to avoid conflict experience a great deal of stress. So if they're trying to avoid conflict, they're not trying to solve conflict. You may experience a great deal of stress. They bottom up their feelings of irritation, frustration, anger inside themselves. So if you're not resolving, creating more anxiety instead of expressing them or resolving the situation, it's essentially a static approach to conflict. So there are certain individuals, though they are going to have misunderstanding, they're going to have frustrations, they are going to have the conflict with the individual, but they want to express that conflict. They are going to keep that side inside them, and it will create more anxiety. And also, instead of they'll be frustrated, and also there will be anger among themselves. There will be too much anger. It does nothing to solve problem, but it makes change how they prevent conflict. So it does nothing to solve problems or to make changes that could solve problems. So avoiding is not a good strategy. If you have any conflict, it's better you solve the misunderstanding, because it's going to create anger, frustration inside you, and also feeling competition. Competition in conflict style is characterized of individuals who are highly assertive about pursuing their own goals, but in pursuing their own goals, with highly assertive about pursuing their own goals, but incooperative in assisting others to reach their goals. So competition in conflict style is characterized by individuals who are highly assertive about pursuing their own goals, but uncooperative in assisting others to achieve their goals. These individuals attempt to resolve a struggle by controlling or pursuing others in order to achieve their own ends. The competitive style is based on win-lose conflict strategy. Competition is spread in our own culture and can produce solutions to conflicts that are more effective and more creative than in competition where not. So competition is not a good way to solve conflict, because other people will try to pursue their own goals and not cooperating with others to reach their goals. So they're not trying to help others. Just it's a selfish approach to achieve your own goal. In areas of cost content, uh, competition approach to conflict can generate innovative cost-solving solutions to complex problems. On the personal level, the two professional concepts to provide quite care. The outcome can be very positive for clients. In effect, competition approach to conflict can challenge participants to make their best effort, and this is can have positive results. So competition on the other hand, can bring about positive results if the two individuals trying to work hard to deliver quite clear the client. So the positive will be good. Generally, though, competition approach to conflict are not the most advantage approach to conflict, because they are more often counterproductive than productive. So it's not in failing to take other concerns into account will do others damage. When we attempt to solve conflict with dominance and control, communication can easily become hostile and destructive. So competition in conflict is not good, because when we try to solve uh, conflict with dominance and control, communication can become hostile. So there will be imbalance in communication between individuals, uh, because people have conflicts among themselves. Competition, too much competition among professions can direct energy away from patients or care objectives towards unnecessary interprofessional struggles. Competition approach to conflict creates unstable situations on as one party is constantly striving to attempt to maintain dominance over the other party. Finally, competition creates this uh, comfort. Competition of individuals fail to recognize the consent. Accommodation in conflict style that is unassertive but cooperative. In accommodation, individuals that attempt very close to the needs of others, ignore her in his own needs. Using this style, individuals confront problems by defining the problem. accommodating on the way, on one way of for individuals to move away from uncomfortable feelings of struggle that conflict innovate uh, produce by yielding to others. Individuals can lessen the frustrations and the conflict face. By yielding to others, individuals can lessen the frustration and conflict face. In accommodating individual necessary communication to others. You are right, I agree. Let's forget about it. So accommodating is okay if the individuals agree. One just says, okay, you are right, I was wrong, I agree, let's forget about it and let's solve the problem. Accommodating is the best way. It's another way to solve problems. The problem with accommodating is that it has the effect of lose-win strategy. Individuals who accommodate may lose because they fail to take the opportunity to express their own opinions and feelings. Their contributions are not fully considered because they are not actively expressed and forced by advocate. This style is primarily in submissive style, which allows others to take charge and override over your interests. This is another case study which is you can answer on your own. Consider the following conflict between a nurse and a physician regarding the use of pain medication to terminally ill cancer patients. Physicians believe that pain medication should be given no sooner than every 4 hours. In contrast, the nurse believes that the patient should be allowed to request pain medication as necessary and should not be adhered to 4 hours regulation stage. After only brief discussion of their difference, the nurse tried to give it into to accept the physician's approach. The nurse in this situation suppresses his or her values regarding pain management in order to maintain a friendly nurse friendliness physician relationship in order to prevent further conflict. So this is accommodation. From a positive perspective, accommodation can be used in situations which preserving harmony is necessary. So in certain situations where all you need is to preserve harmony, you can apply this approach. In general, accommodating can at times be an effective means of eliminating conflict, an effective means of eliminating conflict. As a rule, however, accommodation is not just a preferred conflict style. We have compromise, compromise, com, compromise. Compromise occurs halfway between competition and accommodation. So it's between competition and accommodation, which means include both degrees of assertiveness. Assertiveness is allowing the feelings of others to be expressed even if you're not in support of them. A degree of also cooperativeness. So there's between two. One is trying to cooperate and also is trying to respect other people's decisions. They are trying to work together and also they're trying to respect the decision. In using compromise, compromise this approach, an individual attempts to consent of others as well as to hers or his own consent. Compromise occurs midway between avoidance and collaboration. So it occurs midway between avoidance and collaboration. This means that personnel using this approach do not completely ignore the confrontation, but either do their struggles, problems in the fullest degree. This approach, this conflict style is often chosen because it measures and provides a quick means to find middle ground. It partially satisfies the consent of both parties. Compromise, as well as in her own or his way, compromise occurs midway between avoidance and collaboration. So it's between avoiding the situation and also collaborating. Which means this means that persons using this approach do not completely ignore the confrontation, but either do they struggle the problem to the fullest. This conflict style is often chosen because it measures and provides a quick means to find a middle ground. And compromise the positive conflict style because it requires the individual to attend to others' goals as well as their own. Compromise remind us of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. So the problem with compromise is that it does not go for far enough into resolving conflict. As two persons, as two persons give in others' demands, and both individuals are full back from fully expressing their demands. Both individuals suppress personal thoughts and feelings in order to reach solutions that they would not completely satisfy either side. Collaboration, the most preferred of the conflict that requires both assertive and cooperation. So there's assertiveness and cooperation in this one, collaboration. It involves attending fully to others, concerning, well, not sacrificing or suppressing one's own concerns. Although collaboration is the most preferred style, it is the hardest to achieve. Collaboration requires energy and work among its participants. Collaborating to resolve incompatible differences through collaboration, individuals need to take enough time to work together to find mutual satisfying solutions. The result of collaboration is positive because both individuals mean communicate, communication is satisfied, relationships are strengthened, and future conflicts can be resolved. An effective style such as collaboration and productive is a win-win approach. Both require that participants attend closely to another opinion and proposal, and interaction is one way in which the results are solution accepted in both parties. Collaborative, effective communication is a pivot element that prevents differences among individuals from escalating and facilitating constructive solutions. So if there's an effective communication among individuals, these approaches can be achieved. This is another role play. You are called to the word resolve a conflict between Alain and Ian. As you approach them to hear them arguing, how would you resolve the conflict? This is where we're going to end from conflict resolution. For any questions, you can contact me.